Good evening, dear students and teachers. As you know, every week we have academic days with people from different professions. And we are hosting Roger Smith today. He's a professor.
Good evening.
He's a professor of social works from Durham University. Welcome to our meeting, Mr. Smith. We are delighted to meet you. First of all, our director, Hasan Satılmışoğlu, will make his speech.
Hello, friends, dear colleagues, and dear students. Welcome to our program tonight. As Amasya Anatolia High School, we are doing online meetings, academical meetings, and vocational meetings during the term. With this pandemic time, we would like to help our students to support them with online meetings, especially academical ones. And tonight, our guest is from Durham University, Mr. Roger Smith. I would like to welcome you, Roger. Thank you for accepting our offer to joining our program. I would like to introduce you my school. Amasya Anatolian High School was founded in 1984, and it is one of the most beautiful and most wonderful schools, high schools of Amasya. And our students are mostly prepare themselves to universities, and they are expecting to go to university and to reach their goals there. So these programs are really interesting for them to be helpful for their future planning. And I would like to thank you all the participants to joining tonight. And I don't want to speak more, and enjoy your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Satılmışoğlu. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Smith?
Okay. Yes, I'm a professor, as you said, of social work at Durham University, but this is my third career in a way. I started, I did a degree a long time ago in sociology. I spent a little time after that as a computer programmer before, when computers were so large that they filled the room. Now we carry them around with us, but in those days they used to fill a room. So I spent some time as a computer programmer, and then decided that I really wanted to work with people, and moved into the probation service here, which is organized. I think you have a probation service probably as well, but it's organized to rehabilitate and support former offenders, and that was a social work role which I did for some years, and I have to say found it very rewarding, particularly working with younger people, to try and help them to end their involvement with crime, really, and to become, I suppose, responsible adults, you would say. I then spent some time working with an NGO, a voluntary organisation, promoting child welfare and working with children and parents and government to try and improve the conditions for children and families in this country. And it was only after those careers, if you like, that I moved. I carried out a doctoral program of study, which you need to have to be able to work in a university, and it was from that I went on to become an academic, to become a researcher and a teacher of students, and this is my third university. So what I've enjoyed about that is having three different careers. I mean, they've all been about social welfare, I suppose, and improving conditions for people, and they've all been, I suppose, involved me a lot in working directly with people in communities, and all of that has been very enjoyable. And it's good to be able to work in an academic environment, but still feel that you're in touch with the world outside, and that a lot of what we do is about knowing how better to help people in need. So that's a very short summary of my career, if you like. So by way of introduction, I'll let you ask another question.
So before we start our questions, could you give us some information about the university you work with some visuals?
I haven't, I'm afraid, got any visuals except the one that I just sent. It's partly because I don't usually use Zoom, so I don't have a lot of visuals available on Zoom. But it also, that link, if you can put it up, does show us a little bit about, or does give you as potential international students some information about Durham University. It's an ancient, very old city. It's been here. Durham has a very prominent cathedral building in the middle of the city, and castle. So it's a city that's been here for thousands of years, because it's on a bend in a river, and has been, probably historically, was important because it was easy to defend from invaders and from people who wanted to take the land off the inhabitants. So because it was easy to defend, it became fortified, and it was where they established this cathedral, major place of worship. And partly because of that, I think mostly because of that, it became the site for, I believe it's the third oldest university in England. Here's a visual. Yes, a picture of one of the university buildings. One, as you can see, very old, and there's a lot of pomp and circumstance, a lot of pomp and ceremony. People in their gowns. Those would be academic members of staff, and there's quite a lot of events and occasions where people wear the gowns to celebrate the sort of history of the university. You've got there on the screen now a picture of the cathedral, and the university is closely linked to the cathedral. That building there is part of the castle, which is one of the colleges, and some of the students can actually come and live in the castle in the university. You have to apply, because there's not room for all the students, but if you apply and you get accepted, you can live in a castle as one of the students. So people are excited about that. Durham, as I was saying to some of you just before we started, Durham is also famous because of its connection with the Harry Potter films, and is a place where quite a lot of the filming was done in and around the cathedral, and in another castle near to Durham. So it's got these links with very ancient history and with very recent history, if you like, because of where the Harry Potter films were made, and the links that people can make with places that are identified with Hogwarts, which I guess most of you have heard of Harry Potter, or perhaps even seen the films. I don't know. Is that right? And Durham is one of the places where they're closely linked with Harry Potter. So there's a lot of history and tradition in the university. It's rated as one of the highest rated universities in Britain. It's ranked fifth or sixth, I think. What they do every year is they have university rankings, so it's ranked as one of the most prestigious universities.
May I open?
And in the World League tables, it's about 75th, I think, something like that. So it's ranked quite highly internationally as well.
Roger, he wants to open this video. Is it okay?
I think so. Yes. Try and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yes, please do.
Açabilirsin hocam.
I can truly say that the 2 years at Durham so far have been the best time of my life.
Everything makes it fun. The people, the castle, the atmosphere, it's just amazing.
University College, more commonly known as Castle, is situated in the 11th century castle and is currently a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We now have an undergraduate community of around 600 students.
Well, today is Castle Day, and we have this day every year. It's held on one of the first Saturdays in June, and the whole college just turns out. We get alumni back, and we just have a load of fun. We've got loads of bands and loads of activities going on, and it's awesome. We do a lot of events basically from Freshers Week till the end of June.
We're in Castle. This is my bedroom and Becky's bedroom, and we're in first year, so we share. Not all the rooms are shared. Most of the third years have a single room unless they opt to share. There is other accommodation, which is in Owen Gate, Bailey Court and Moteside. The furthest away is only about 3 minutes down the hill, and they all have a lot of fun together. They all get to know each other really well, and they have lots of socials and parties, and there's just definitely a bond between them. So it is definitely not the end of the world if you're not actually living in the castle.
At Castle we have a growing international community. More and more international students decide to come here. And now, at the moment, we have students from all over the world, most countries in Europe, Asia, America. When I first arrived, I was quite scared. I didn't know how to set up a bank account. Am I going to make any friends? But when I arrived at Castle, there was initial support, and that support has continued throughout the year. And my English has just improved so much over the past 2 years. Now I don't have any problem understanding a Geordie or a person from Durham.
Here at Castle we have an established welfare support system from the senior tutor, the chaplain and also a parenting system alongside a select group of students who are sort of there to chat through any problems that you may come across in your time here.
Well, this is the college library, which is called the Law Library. And what's really great about it, apart from it being in the castle, is the fact that it's open 24 hours, which means that if you're up in the middle of the night and you need to do something, instead of trekking to the main library, you can come here and work here instead. You've kind of got everything in one place, so it's really handy.
There's a lot of kind of the fun aspect. You know, we've got the Undercroft Bar, which is the oldest student bar in the world. It's kind of the social hub of college. Obviously everyone kind of tends to hang out there, go for a few drinks before nights out, or even just for kind of less social events where you might go there, you know, to listen to some music and things like that. So we've got a lot going on in and around the college.
At University College we have formals twice a week. It's a great opportunity to catch up with people from all different year groups, and also if you're living out, we all arrange that we're going to come back in on a Tuesday or a Thursday so that we can all eat dinner together.
So tonight we've got like a 3-hour meal in the marquee, which is a massive deal. Then we all go inside and we get a huge fireworks display, and we've got all the rooms and secret passages open in Castle. So we get spinning teacups, getting magic mirrors. It's all very exciting. We've got a survivors photo where everyone comes out. It was lasted the entire evening, for 12 hours. So everyone goes out, gets really excited, and then we have a huge breakfast, and then we go to bed.
You may think that students don't ever do any studying from that film, but I'm afraid that's not true. That film was made by the students, and obviously they wanted to emphasise the importance of making friends, university life being about the social side as well as learning. This is important for all of you, wherever you go to university, that you need to think about the social side of it as well as what you want to learn, what you want to get from the university in terms of study. And so if you went to Durham or if you went to anywhere, you would need to think about the importance of being a good social experience for you. And they talk there about the kind of support that's provided, so that you've got people who are study advisors, but personal advisors and support as well. And these are all very important aspects of the life of students in universities. It is obviously students are there to provide each other support, but also we have a very strong sort of welfare structure, so that if people do find themselves isolated or having difficulty, that they have places that they can go where they can get support for themselves personally. And this is an important element of university life alongside academic study. So it kind of gives you quite an interesting flavour of what students think are important, but also what university life is like. Apart from it didn't say much about studying, but you can't avoid that, I'm afraid.
First, we would like to ask some questions about your profession.
Yeah.
What exactly does a social worker do?
I don't think I've got enough time to tell you absolutely everything that a social worker does. And it does differ depending on where you are in the world. So if I talk about what social workers do in this country, there are different social work roles in different parts of the world. So this isn't true everywhere. Mainly in this country, especially state-employed social workers are concerned with family welfare, with ensuring that children are safe and provided a safe and good quality upbringing, if you like. So social workers do get involved with families if there are problems, if families have difficulties, if there are risks facing the children or families break up, as they sometimes do, then social workers have a role potentially in providing help for those families. Social workers are also involved where we have older people, for instance, who have illness or disability, who need care and support, and social workers have a significant role in helping to support those families and make sure that they're provided with the necessary care, maybe have housing, specialist housing provided, that kind of thing. So a social worker's role is very much about making those arrangements and making sure that people are supported. And another area where social work is very significant is in working with people who have mental health problems. I hope these terms, that they make sense to you, but people who are mentally ill may need support and help. And again, social workers will act to work with those people to try and help them to resolve the problems that are associated with being mentally ill. They will help support families who are caring for people. And they will try, in a sense, that they will try to find ways of making people's lives better where they're facing real difficulties and their social functioning, if you like, is impaired. So that's in very broad terms what social workers are employed to do in this country. In other parts of the world where state services are perhaps less well developed, social workers will have a much more central role in trying to prevent poverty or to promote the rights of families and people who are communities who are facing deprivation of one sort or another. That's less likely to be the case, happens less in affluent countries or developed countries like the UK, but it will be a very strong part of a social worker's role in other developing countries around the world.
What qualities should we have to be successful at this profession?
I've now realised that the sun is shining in my face. Sorry, because it'll look a bit strange, I'm sure, for you. Perhaps I'll move, excuse me.
We are in dark.
I hope that's better.
Shining.
It's darker, but well, it's not much better, is it? Anyway, the qualities for social work. You need to be patient, I think, because you are having to work with people who are experiencing difficulties. That's a necessary part of the job. You need to have the ability to understand and to sympathize, empathize, understand people's problems, to analyze their problems effectively. You need to be, people do bad things, and a social worker needs to not judge people and not make judgments about whether people are good or bad, because often you're trying to help people who make wrong choices. I worked, as I said before, with people who were convicted criminals, and it was important that I tried to support them and encourage them back into law-abiding activities, if you like. And so it was important not to judge people. But also social workers work with children who are vulnerable or who are being harmed. And it's very important to try and avoid judging people, parents who may be having difficulty caring for their children. So it's very important not to judge people, and it's very important to be, and not to blame people, and also to try and encourage people to resolve their own problems, because good social work means that you can leave people when you've finished, and leave them and know that they have the ability to solve their own problems and to move forward in their lives. So you also have to have the ability to motivate people, to help people to feel that they can change things for themselves, rather than just doing things for them all the time. So that's a list of some of the qualities, I think. It probably helps if you can laugh at yourself as well, but that's or not take yourself too seriously. But I expect that's true of most professions, to be honest. But, yeah.
Thank you. And why did you choose this profession, Mr. Smith?
Why did I choose it? I mean, I found out about it because somebody gave me a lift in their car who described their job, and I thought, that's the job I want to do. It's difficult to say. It's difficult to say what about. You know, it was a long time ago. I think it was to do with knowing that I wanted to be in a position where I could help people to change things for themselves. It was, I suppose, feeling, as you have to, that you can do something, you can make a difference, you can help people to change their lives, that you have certain skills or aptitudes. I didn't want to, I mean, you know, and it's also about what you don't want to do. I wanted to be working with people rather than with machines or in business, or, you know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of those things, but you kind of, I'm sure you're all beginning to think, are you all beginning to think about what you might do in your lives? And you probably, some of you at least, have a good idea of what you don't want to do. And so sometimes what's decided is what's left when you've decided what you don't want to do. So I had decided that I wasn't very comfortable. I was a computer programmer for a while, as I said, and I wasn't very comfortable doing that. I didn't, because it's just about mental problems, if you like, solving, you know, mental arithmetic, that kind of thing. And I wanted to work more closely with people, I suppose.
Thank you.
We would like to ask some questions about the university education in your country.
Sure. Yeah.
How do students get right to attend universities in the UK?
How do they get the right to enter? Well, there are two main routes. Well, no, probably three, but two principal routes, which are series of exams, school exams, sixth form, taken at round about the age of 17 or 18, called A-levels, which I don't think have an international equivalent. So you take probably 3, maybe 4 of those. For each grade, you get a certain number of points. The universities add the points together, and if you achieve the university threshold, then you're entitled to a place at that university. So that's kind of how universities work, how university selection works. But students, that's one route. Students would have to pass a certain number of exams with a certain number of points. Or there's the International Baccalaureate, and I don't know, I expect you may have that as well. Do you have that?
No.
You don't know. But the International Baccalaureate, which has only been introduced into the UK quite recently, but has a strong tradition in France and some other European countries, because it's got an international equivalence. It works on the same basis, but it has more subjects. And I think students still have to achieve a certain threshold, certain number of points in those different subjects. But it's a different, it's a much, I think you have 6 subjects rather than 3 or 4, and it's assessed differently. So this is a different model, but it's increasingly being accepted by universities because it means there is an equivalence between UK students and international students. And if, you know, I have to be honest, universities in this country like international students because the fees are higher. So they, you know, to some extent, universities are driven by finance, and so our universities are very open to having international students. They'd be very willing to welcome students from Turkey or elsewhere, but it's also at a cost because the fees are quite high, and We do recruit international students, but usually those who are able to afford, significant fees. It does have Durham does have an international study centre, and not all universities in the UK do, so that it is possible to come here for a year before entry and to then achieve the necessary standards in exams, but also in English language, because there's an English language qualification or threshold score required. And so it is possible for students to come here for a year, prepare for entry, and do an entry exam through this international study centre. But again, it's if you can afford it, if you have the finance to be able to do that, it's a good way of because you're preparing yourself for the culture, the different, living in a different country and so on, as well as preparing for university study.
Then let me ask this. What level should my English be to go abroad for language education? Okay.
Do you know IELTS?
Yeah.
IELTS. Durham's the score that we usually ask for students to come to study. So what they would have before they came is around about 7, I think, in IELTS, or 7.5. So I don't know if you've done the test at all, but no. I guess if you wanted to, you could probably you could probably get a sample and do the test and see where you are. It sounds to me as if your English is reasonably good in any case. But you tested in spoken and written English and in comprehension and listening as well. So you have three different elements to the test, and so it's a combined score that matters. So yeah. But I've worked with quite a lot of international students, and in all honesty, some of them are better. Their English is better than others, and it's very much to do with how much work you do preparing yourself, and if you want to. I know, again, I don't speak a word of your language, and I apologize for that, but nearly all of you will know some English because that's the language that nearly everybody speaks. And so for most people, actually learning English isn't so difficult because you already know a bit. It's much harder for me. But yes, I think if that's your ambition, it's not the most difficult thing in the world to learn to read and write and understand academic English. The words are longer, but you get used to them.
Thank you. How do high schools help students to plan their future?
How do schools? We have our schools. I expect your school does as well. I'm sure it's a very good school. It has a careers office. So most schools have careers guidance and advisors. I'm talking about university education, but it isn't the right choice for a lot of people, and a lot of people. If it's a non-academic subject, if people want to go into engineering or something like that, or house building, it may be that university is the wrong choice for them. And it's really important that, that if you have the opportunity while you're at school, you can talk through this sort of thing with a careers advisor. And most schools, as I say, most schools here have staff who are trained and prepared to be able to advise their students about what career is best for them. And I know it's difficult. I didn't know what I wanted to do until after I was at university. So I'd already gone to university before I decided roughly what sort of career I wanted. So sometimes I think people would feel, school students would feel it was too early when they're 16, 17, 18 to be choosing what they're going to be doing when they're 58. That's a long time to be making a decision that's going to last with you for life. And I'm not sure how for some people they know. I had a friend who knew she was going to be a doctor from the age of about 10. Her parents were doctors, and she knew she was going to be a doctor, and she was. So that it works for some people, but for most of us, we have to make it's more difficult making that kind of choice. I definitely think you should seek advice if you can. I definitely think you should look around carefully and not think that you have to do the first thing that comes along, because it's a long time to be doing something you don't enjoy. And the really important thing is, try and choose something. I know it's not, we can't always choose. Sometimes we have to earn money. We have to do a job we don't like because, it pays the bills. But it's really important to try and choose something that you're going to get some enjoyment from, and come home or wake up on the first day of the week and think, I want to go to work. That's nice. I mean, it's been, virtually all the time I've been working, I've worked in jobs where I can think, yes, I want to go to work tomorrow. And that should be what you kind of aim for. I know it's not, and we should all have that dream. I know it's not possible for everyone, and that's a shame, but it's important for you to have that dream, I think, at the moment anyway.
Thank you. Which faculties or departments are popular among the students in the UK?
Okay, probably the same as for you. I expect a lot of people apply for medicine in Turkey. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people apply for law.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's same here. Yeah, quite a lot of people like to go into engineering, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Increasingly here, people are interested in computers and computer science.
Yeah.
Yeah. We also know, I don't know, do you watch TV crime films? Crime TV shows? A lot of people here want to be criminologists or forensic scientists now. The bodies, when I'm a bit gory, but when you see those films and the people are investigating cause of death, those because of those films, people are more interested in that kind of subject. People like media studies and design and that kind of thing, because I used to work at a university which was very popular because of its music lab, and it was modern music, not so much classical music, but modern music, electronic music, that kind of thing. So people wanted to go to that university because it was famous for that kind of music production. So, that's a whole range of different subjects. And then Durham is famous for archaeology, because I've talked about the history, and it's very easy. I was looking earlier on because I wanted to see if there were any connections with Turkey. We have a Turkish colleague who's very interested in the burial traditions in Anatolia. Anatolia, is that how you pronounce it? I don't know how you pronounce it, but and he studied at the University of Ataturk, which is not that far from you. I think I looked at the map.
Yes.
And he's here doing archaeology. So Durham is very popular for archaeology because of the history and because there are a lot of sites near here where you can find historic remains from the Roman invasion, that sort of thing. I think I can't remember. You had Romans, didn't you, as well? I think the Romans were well, they were almost all over Europe at one point. So anyway, archaeology is very popular here, and history, that kind of thing, because of the university's history and traditions. So I haven't left any subjects out, have I? Oh, astronomy, that's another thing that people get very interested in now because of we have a lot of physicists, popular physicists, who go on TV and do a lot of stuff on looking at stars, that sort of thing. So when you get that, you get a lot of people who want to study astronomy. So yes, that's a long list, isn't it? But it is, it's good. Again, it was a long time ago that I went to university, and we didn't have anything like the same choice that you do. And in a way, that's a good thing, because you've got a lot more options. If you're going to university, a lot more choice now. Yeah.
Thank you. What kind of social and cultural activities do universities have in the UK?
Well, you just saw that film, didn't you? Yes. I think they think it's very important for students to become part of a social community. And that's something that the colleges at Durham are very good for, that because each of the colleges has its own facilities and its own meeting rooms, and you saw some of that. I mean, you did see University College where the students have the castle, which I talked about earlier on, and that is probably the one that most people want, if you like, because not all the buildings look like that. But yeah, I mean, the social part of it is very important. Durham has a very strong sporting tradition as well. I didn't mention that, but Durham has a lot of sports teams, football, and other sports that you won't be familiar with. You saw them throwing an oval ball, a rugby ball. And we play cricket here, which won't mean anything to you either. But there's other sports. There's hockey. There's athletics. There's Durham and rowing. I think you saw a picture of rowing as well. So rowing and sport is very important in Durham as well. And I think in many universities there are some that have a much stronger sporting reputation, but those are really important aspects of student life as well as studying. So that there's all of that sort of thing. Then I think what you probably didn't see there is most universities have facilities for music, for bands or concerts or theatre or whatever. So and in some places the university, in some cities, probably in Durham to some extent, it's where people go from outside, from the local area, will come to the university for some activities, for some concerts, theatre events, that kind of thing. So universities are quite important as cultural centres, really. We've got, the university hosts a museum. It has the library. I mean, it tries to make some of its ancient, some of the library texts open to the public, because some of the books in the university are hundreds of years old. So it's an important kind of resource, historic resource as well. And like I said, we film Harry Potter here as well. So.
Which qualities do young people need to get a job in the UK?
Say it again, sorry.
Which qualities do young people need to get a job in the UK? Well, I think it's very difficult for young people at the moment. I mean, I think you'll probably know as well and you may be looking at it, worried a little bit about this because of the pandemic. The economic situation has changed. I'm sure it will have changed for you as well. And it's been very difficult for young people because their jobs are often not so secure, quite difficult to keep. We lost, when everything shut down, we lost a lot of the work in bars and restaurants and delivery work. I don't know how, I'm not sure if I'm describing something you're familiar with, but if you have, restaurants, that sort of thing, where a lot of young people worked, those jobs went. It was very difficult for young people. It probably will be difficult for young people for a little while yet. And if I was advising people, I would say, and it was possible, I would say, think carefully before leaving school or college, because actually you might be better staying somewhere where you're improving your qualifications and your chances of employment, rather than moving into a job which might not be there in a few weeks. And that's it is very difficult for young people at the moment here, certainly. And as I say, I'm guessing, but I think probably for you as well, for some young people. So you asked what quality do they need? I think I think at the moment they need to think about making sure that they're qualified for whatever it is they want to do. I think if you're applying for a job, you need to show that you really want to do it, and that you thought about it. And I was I think it's the same for young people as it would be for future colleagues here. If I'm going to look for a job, or if I would find out a little bit about the place that I was applying to. If it was another university, or if it was a business or something like that, I would do some homework. I would do some investigation and find out, so that when I'm interviewed, when I'm talking to people about the job, I can show that I'm interested in them, because it's not all about am I good enough, it's also have I shown an interest in the job, do I really want to do it.
you know, it's always difficult because when you're applying for a job or you're applying for a university place, you're competing with other people and competing with.
After the university, is the name of the university important to be accepted?
Here, I don't know. Do you have? Do you know which of the most important universities are in Turkey? Is it in Istanbul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. It's the same here. That there's a hierarchy, and the most important universities and the ones that are most difficult to get into are Oxford and Cambridge here, Bristol, Durham is one of them, University College London, London School of Economics, Imperial College London, Edinburgh University in Scotland. There are 7 or 8 universities and Durham is one of them, I think, that everybody wants to go to, or not everybody, but many people want to go to, and so are more difficult to get into. And then there is another whole cohort of universities, and very good universities, places Nottingham, Warwick, Loughborough, Leeds, Manchester, Birmingham, a whole very big cities, big universities, which are extremely good, but there's still this kind of ranking. You know, they're not ranked quite as highly. But you get a sense of that, and also, I mean, if you know where you want to go, and I know this from my children really, if you know where you want to go, and I'll talk about my oldest daughter who decided to go to the city which she thought was most exciting. You know, a fun city with lots going on, lots of students, lots of entertainment, and that's why it's a good university, but that's why she chose it, not because necessarily, and it did the subjects that she wanted. So it was a combination of choices, but it was that decided her, rather than, she wasn't thinking this is ranked number 7 in the world or something like that, 23, or she didn't look at it and think, I need to go to the one that's highest ranked. She went to the one that was best for her. And it's the same for you really. You need to think, what do I want to study? And where will I feel comfortable? Where will I feel at home? Some people like to go into the big city. Some people want to go and study in the countryside, you know, because of their own sort of personality and preferences, choices. It's really important to sort of try and sit down with yourself and do a list, you know, of the things that matter to you, and make sure that you can tick as many of those as possible when you're making those choices. Don't be too worried about how a university rates, and if you're somewhere where you're happy and enjoying it, you'll do better, you know, and that's important, isn't it?
Yes, thank you.
Now we would like to ask some questions about the foreign people who want to study or work at universities in the UK.
Okay. Do
you have any foreign lecturers at your university?
I mentioned I was looking, because of this, I was looking today. And I do have a Turkish colleague in the archaeology department, which I didn't know before today, because I mean, universities have separate departments, and I don't know everybody who works here. There are, I think, 3,000 or something work here. So but I did look today to see, and there's a Turkish colleague I know. But we have, in our department, I have a Russian colleague. I have someone from Hong Kong. We have a colleague from Australia, a colleague from another colleague from Hong Kong, colleagues from various places around the world, and so an American colleague. So we have colleagues from many different countries, and one of the things that we're trying to do, that universities like everywhere else are trying to do at the moment, is be more diverse, so that trying to include people from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds, and of course recruiting internationally is part of that. Bringing people in from different countries helps to do that, and helps us not to be all the same. So we do have quite a number of international colleagues, and the example I gave, the Turkish colleague, it's interesting because he didn't come here to do his degree. He did his degree in Turkey, and then came here after that when his academic interest brought him to Durham, I think.
Yeah, we have a question about that.
Yeah.
What should a foreigner do to study or work at your university?
Okay. Well, firstly, I mean, I mentioned the International Study Centre. So that's one way that a foreigner can come here and prepare and fulfil the entry requirements, because you'd get a year. I mean, people come for a year or for part of a year to improve their English and to do the necessary preparatory exams before coming to Durham. So that's one way that you can do it. One other way would be to look at this international baccalaureate, which you can transfer from one country to another. It sounds as if it's maybe not something that you're familiar with, but it's something that, as I say, once you have that and you have sufficient points in the baccalaureate, that qualifies you to go to universities anywhere in any country where that is accepted as an entry requirement, and it does apply here in many universities. I think if you're, for you, I mean, I think well, for school students or for undergraduate students, those are the main routes. But then there would also be the possibility of maybe it's more difficult because of the rules that have followed our leaving the European Union, and it makes it more difficult for people to come here and stay. But people could come and work, and you know, if they've already got the academic qualifications, it might be that coming to work here first and familiarising yourself with the country and the environment, learning how English is spoken in different places, and learning how, you know, the culture, if you like, is maybe another way of preparing yourself. But whichever it is, I think you'd need to look carefully at the academic requirements, and you know and as I said before, think carefully about which university would be most interesting and important from your point of view. They're not necessarily. I mean, I think now, well, it's easier. It's definitely easier to travel. It's certainly easier for. We recruit members of staff from around the world, as I said, and the most important thing for recruiting staff is that the people are familiar with the subject and know. As I say, I've mentioned him a couple of times, our archaeology colleague, because he was an expert in that particular field of study. You know, he could relatively easily apply to Durham and come and join us. So it's more if you're looking at becoming employed as an academic, it's more about having an expertise and having skills in a particular academic field. So that, I mean, that's in a way I think you probably have to be more focused perhaps than you do if you're a school student or an undergraduate. Don't know if that answered your question, but yeah.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay.
Now we can take questions from the audience.
Okay.
Do we have any questions from the audience?
If they want to put them in the chat, if people don't want to put up their hands, they can put questions in the chat as well, as long as I can understand it, or you can translate it for me. If they want to, you know, I mean, I know I wasn't supposed to encourage people to speak in Turkish, but if you prefer to do that and somebody can translate it for me, that's fine.
We have a question from Dilara Kalkan.
Hi. I want to ask a question to Mr. Smith.
Okay.
I wonder what the average age of young offenders in your country is.
I didn't quite hear all of that, sorry.
What is the average age of young offenders in your country?
Of young offenders?
Yeah.
Well, the law in this country means that you can be from 10 years old. The average age is about 15, but because of the way the criminal law works, it can be younger than that. Does that help?
Roger,
Yes.
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What are the drawbacks of your profession?
The drawbacks.
Yes.
I think that the
Do you ever regret being a professor?
not really. I don't think. I think there are a lot of things that are good about it. One is that ability to do research and to build on the knowledge that we already have. So you feel that you're helping people to understand the subject more. One is educating, I suppose, and working with people who are learners and gaining the satisfaction if people get good grades, that kind of thing. One is at the moment, it's very good to be able to work with a community of scholars, of people who are interested in the same thing. And I know you can get that from work communities in all sorts of professions, but it's something that is very strong in a good university or a good department. People are very interested in what each other's doing. And I mean, I should also say that the pay is okay. I mean, I get paid reasonably well. I'm not rich, but and the conditions, I don't have to, especially with the pandemic, I don't have to be in the office at a certain time, and I don't have to leave at a certain time. So there are a lot of things that are, that are very positive about the job. You did ask what the drawbacks were. One of the drawbacks is that it never finishes. There's always something else to do. You can always improve what you're doing. You can always find out more. And I do know, I mean, I hope I've not fallen foul of this, but I do know of people who become quite stressed because they don't know when to stop. And it is one of those things where you have to be self-disciplined enough to say, I'm finishing today, I'm going to, have a walk, or I'm going, I've done enough hours this week. And it's important to manage yourself in that kind of way. And it is a job with no boundaries. And that's one of the other thing I think is that the other thing that is frustrating for me is that you do acquire all this new knowledge and understanding and insight, but you worry that you don't change things. I mean, I've got very clear ideas about what are the best ways of working with young people who break the law, young people who offend, but it's not always something that government is interested in or responds to. So sometimes you feel as if you're talking and no one's listening. But I expect that's probably quite something you feel sometimes as well. So it's not definitely the disadvantages don't match up to the advantages, and I'm still very happy to be doing it. Even though I'm moving towards retiring, but it's still, I'm happy to be doing it. Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask anybody, are you all hoping to go to university?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And have you had to apply? Have you had to apply to universities yet?
No, we have to take the exam first to be able to apply.
Right, that's a good thing. We have to apply first and then take the exam. So, and that's a problem because people don't always get the grades. They either do better and then they have to sort of change their plans, or they do worse. And so actually taking the exam first, your system is better than ours, yeah. Because once you know what you've got, then you know what you can aim for, really, which university to aim for. So yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Roger, I would like to ask you something about while our students are asking you questions about university education for foreigners in the UK, you told us that they have to afford this to be a student in the UK. So they need money to be a student in the UK university. How is the situation for UK students? I ask this because government's responsibility is to give their citizens their education. So in Turkey, our primary, secondary, and high school education, and also university education in state universities are free. They don't have to pay, but they have to spend for their own accommodation and food, etc. Yeah. But we visited twice in the UK, and we see that I'm not sure about that. I want to learn it from you, that if the students need money, I ask for UK citizens to be able to be a student in the university. But it is a question for intelligent students also. For every students and for intelligent students, do they have to pay for their university education? Thank you.
Nearly all the students in England, and this is where the UK, it's important to recognise that the UK is 4 different countries. So the rules are different in different parts of the UK. And in England, the students have to borrow the money to pay their fees and for their living accommodation. So the fees, and I don't know what the exchange rate is, I'm sorry, but the fees are £9,000 in English money. That's 10,000 euros, something like that. And I don't know what it is is it lira? Turkish lira? Yeah, I don't know what the equivalent is, and that's every year. So the students,
too much money for Turkish.
Yeah, the students here, and this is the home students, and as I said, in obviously international students pay probably more than that. But this has to come from the students have to borrow the money from the state. They can borrow from the state if they, or they can rely on their parents if they're very rich. But that means that, and that system changed a few years ago, and it's been very controversial, but it seems to be the system that we're now stuck with. But the problem is that when students leave university, they have large debts, which are then taken out of or some of the money is taken back from their income. And so it means that they carry that with them I mean, 2 of my children have still got debts from their university days. And, one of them is a healthcare professional, but that doesn't mean that they get allowed, they don't get released from their debts. So yes, I mean, you asked me, I think it's a very unfair system. I think your system is much fairer because everybody who is accepted for a university place is entitled to a university education, and should be, because otherwise we're discriminating against poorer people who would, can't afford to be in debt. They can't afford, large debt. So it does probably discourage some people from applying to university. Yeah. Yeah. So to make sure you don't give that up. Yeah. I mean, ours is the United States has a very similar system to ours and very expensive university education. But even there, I think they have scholarships and so on for state-run universities. So it's something we have a problem, I think, with that. And again, I mean, you were asking earlier on about if any of your students want to go and study somewhere else and study in English language. There are universities outside of England. I mean, even in Scotland or in the Netherlands, which charge much lower fees, much lower cost. So it's very important, if people are thinking about money, that they look at what it's going to cost them and how they can afford that, how they can pay it back if they're borrowing money. So yeah, long speech, but it's something we here feel quite strongly about.
Okay, Roger, I got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
There are questions in the chat box.
Okay.
One of them is from our teacher from school.
Okay, I'll go through what is my priority in university education. University education is a balance between learning and teaching, I think, if you like. And so the priority is to try and merge them so that universities employ very good researchers, people who are good at investigating challenging subjects, people who are, I mean, to use the example at the moment, people who've been investigating and studying COVID-19 and the vaccine. And it's interesting to note, isn't it, that I believe that the inventors or discoverers of the Pfizer vaccine were Turkish, is that right? I know they were in Germany, but I think they were Turkish researchers. You know, it's very important that people are pioneering that search for new knowledge, but it's also very important that they use that and apply it in teaching the students who are going to be the next researchers, the future researchers. So the priority is to make sure that we do both very well. We learn, we discover what needs to be discovered, but we share it so that we're also very good at educating, at passing that knowledge on. So in a sense, that my priority is to merge the two so that that we have the best research and it's communicated most effectively. And the second question, have I got any dissatisfactions as a social worker? Well, it's a while ago since I was a social worker, but if I am dissatisfied, it's that we have, again, this is a UK problem, but social work is very much bound up with protecting children, with providing immediate services for people who are in some sort of difficulty. But it doesn't have a strong role in making communities stronger or in tackling disadvantage and poverty. And we do have areas of the country where there's considerable poverty, and social work should be more actively involved in making communities stronger. I see another question's come now. Is getting a degree in social work hard? We said about money. One of the things that social work students benefit from is that there's a small amount of money paid to them, so as a bursary. So financially, it's not quite as hard as other degrees, but you do have to do academic learning alongside learning and working as a social worker or as a social work student in communities and with families in the way I've described. So it's hard because you're managing two different types of learning at the same time and trying to maintain a good quality of academic work while you're working with people who are facing problems, and you're learning how to help people to deal with problems as effectively as possible. So it is it's difficult from that point of view. You have to manage two different types of learning, but if you're committed to it, and if it's right for you, and the good thing about doing practice learning as part of a degree is you learn whether the job is right for you because you're actually trying the job out at the same time. And of course, a lot of people are successful at the end of it and pass their degrees and go on to be good social workers. So it's hard, but it's rewarding as well in the end. And then a question, which university is the best at language education in the UK? I think it depends which university. I think different universities specialise in different languages. There's a university or a college in London called the School of Oriental and African Studies, which is very good at Asian and African languages, for instance. But
English language especially.
Oh, English language. Well, the most famous one for English is the University of East Anglia, which is where a lot of novelists come from. But this is about English literature, if you like, and this is about being a creative writer. So that's the university that I would say was strongest for, if you like, the subject of English. Those that are best at language education, if you're using that language, you mean learning English to do other subjects. Well, I think the setup here is very good because there is this introductory year, but there are also language learning programs which people can do before they start their courses, and that's specifically what Durham does. I think other universities like Edinburgh probably have very, very similar arrangements so that people can immerse themselves, if you like, if you see what I mean there, because you're learning in a place where it's English that's spoken all the time. So if you go into a shop, you have to speak English. If you go into, go to watch a concert or something like that, you have to buy your tickets in English. So if you're traveling on the train, you have to, so you're becoming, immersed in speaking English. And I think that's helpful for people. So these kind of language programs, short courses, which are based in universities, are very, very useful as well. But I don't know all of them, so I don't think I can say which one is the best.
That's all, I think, for the question.
Is it? Right, okay. Are you sure? Everyone's sure? Okay.
Yeah.
If anybody has any more questions or thinks of any other questions afterwards, if you tell, well, you can work it out, but tell the moderators or tell the organizers, pass on your questions to me by email, and I'll see if I can answer them. Yeah.
Email.
We can write your email on chat also.
I'll try and do that. Yes. Okay.
It will be useful.
Yeah.
Daha sonradan sorularınız olursa e-mail ile gönderebilirsiniz. Professor Smith'e.
Okay, and what's it done? It's done that thing that it always does. Right, it's just the email that's coming now. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for answering our all questions.
No, it's a pleasure. Glad to meet you. Nice to meet you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for your participation, Mr. Smith. We all appreciate your valuable contribution to our career days. Good night.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, Roger, for your joining our program again. It was really useful program for us and for our students.
Yeah.
Now, during this time, we don't use English, we don't speak English, but now we have a good opportunity to speak with you here.
Yeah.
And I hope to meet you here online or face-to-face in the
future. Hopefully, yeah.
Face-to-face in healthy days.
Yes.
Thank you very much again.
Well, it was very nice to meet you again, and thanks to everyone for taking part. And your English is very good, by the way, for those people who spoke to me. That's
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening to you.
Goodbye then. Yeah.
Good evening to you. Good night to us.
Yes, good night to you. Yes, it's late, isn't it? Good night. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.